Hey, how's it going, everybody? Welcome to a 3 News Digital exclusive. I am Ben Axelrod, and I am here with two of the biggest Cleveland Indians enthusiasts that I know, Nick Camino, 3 News sports anchor, and Tyler Carey of WKYC.com. And guys, it's here, opening day, just around the corner. I'm still kind of in a mode where I'll believe it when I see it, but for all intents and purposes, the Cleveland Indians are going to host the Kansas City Royals on Friday night at Progressive Field, and what will be the first of what will hopefully be 60 games to make up the 2020 MLB season. And before we get to breaking down the Tribe, just for both of you, Nick, we'll start with you. What have these last really, 4 months been like from a baseball perspective? As far as we were what, 2 weeks away from opening day when the sports world shut down, and then months of negotiations, and here we are, July 24th. Getting ready for the season to start up.
Yeah, this is unlike anything we've seen. I was talking to Paul Hoynes the other day, longtime Indians beat writers with Cleveland.com now, and he was just talking about how this feels like the longest spring training ever. It's been crazy. But yeah, when everything stopped, and then they were saying, okay, well, we're going to try and get this season going, and you had all those labor negotiations that got a little bit ugly between the owners and the players union. You just started to wonder, man, are we really going to have a season? But now that it's here, I'm with you, Ben. There's part of me that's like, God, we'll believe it when we see it. But it's coming, and I think people, for the most part, I think people are feeling a little bit different. But at the same time, we're excited because I feel like right now we need something to watch. We need something to get our minds off of the craziness that's going on in our everyday lives. And it'll be nice to have baseball back, and it'll be cool to have the Tribe back for sure.
Yeah, Tyler, what about you? Baseball is as big a part of your life as just about anybody I know.
Oh, absolutely. And I echo what Nick said. It's just, I can still remember the night that everything really shut down, when we found out that Rudy Gobert tested positive in the NBA, and just how surreal that was, and just the dominoes kind of falling, March Madness, NFL, and then baseball, unsurprisingly, went with it. I was one of those people who, when the owners and players were going through those negotiations, I was so frustrated with it because I thought both sides handled it horribly as far as a PR standpoint. And in my head, I was kind of at the point where I don't even care anymore. Just, this season's not even going to matter. Just don't even do it. And then when they announced they were coming back, even if it was for just those 60 games, like on a dime, I flipped, like, oh, it's back. I can't wait for it. And I was with you guys. I was in kind of that wait and see mode for the longest time, especially as cases were kind of going up, and they're still going up in some places. But then as you saw the MLB test results coming back, they're not having a lot of positive cases. And then really when I saw the Indians exhibition games this past week against the Pirates, and I finally got to see live baseball, I told myself, I think this is really going to happen. And I just started to get that jittery feeling again. And I think that this is a legitimate season. Whoever wins it should be considered a true champion, no asterisk next to it. And I'm really excited to finally get back to watching my favorite sport once again.
Yeah, I'm skeptical still that they're going to be able to finish this thing out, just because, you look at the NBA and going to a bubble format and how seemingly successful they've been. I worry just, with all the travel and these guys not being contained to a bubble, and, all it takes.
One team not even having a stadium.
Yeah, and all it takes is one bad decision from one player, and it could affect the rest of the roster and the rest of the sport. But, when they were negotiating this thing, this 60-game season, I thought this was the worst option of everything they were considering when you look at weighing all the options. But, the adage is some baseball is better than no baseball, and here we are on Thursday, and I'm pumped for Yankees Nationals. Like, I'm really excited just to have a real baseball game. And to your point, Tyler, even having the exhibitions having been on, that's been nice as well. But that's kind of my mindset right now is, hey, enjoy this while we have it, because who knows how long we'll have it for, and surely we know what it was like not to have it. So I'm just excited to have it here. And hopefully they can stick this out. Let's shift gears to the Tribe, though. We cover the Indians. We are the home of the Cleveland Indians. we'll be airing the home opener, season opener on Friday night on WKYC.
We're still calling them that, right, Ben? We're still calling them Indians for now.
This might be the Cleveland Indians' last opening day.
Look.
So, yeah, we may be carrying the Cleveland Indians' final opening day, but we've been running previews and prediction pieces throughout WKYC.com throughout the week. We have a big prediction piece coming on Friday with staff members throughout WKYC and 3 News sharing their predictions. But let's just start with the lineup, Nick. When you look at this lineup now, and now that we kind of see, a final lineup coming into form and a 30-man roster coming into form, what sticks out to you about this roster?
Well, I think that the thing that really stuck out to me was at the beginning of the week, Terry Francona said he's going to go with 4 switch hitters at the top of the lineup. I mean, that really gives you some versatility, no matter who you're playing, who's pitching. I mean, you can put guys on either side of the plate. That's going to help you a lot. I just think Terry Francona, as much as we talk about him having so many bullpen arms, the other thing I think he likes is offensive versatility, being able to shift guys in and out, being able to use different guys in the outfield if he has to, or in the infield if he has to, and being able to really shift those pieces, parts inside the lineup. I think that's something that he really likes. I think it's a lot of the Indians' success is going to come down to their offense. I know we talk about their starting pitching a lot, and I think there's some question marks surrounding their bullpen, but in this division against the Minnesota Twins, who set a home run record last year, and the Chicago White Sox, who have spent more money than, who knows, it's like I feel like you're really going to have to score some runs. And in the American League, there is no bigger stat, no more important stat than runs scored. And so that's what they're going to have to do. And, hopefully this offense, the way that Francona has built this lineup and built this offense, hopefully they're able to score runs consistently. Yeah,
you look at the lineup in past years and in recent years, it's always been a little, top heavy. And sometimes it's shifted to where they have, too many right-handers in there and not enough versatility as far as having left-handers. I think a lot of things came into focus this week with this lineup when, one, they really established that Francisco Lindor is going to be their number 3 hitter, that Cesar Hernandez is going to be the leadoff hitter. Frankie, just with his power and what he's been able to do, he now has 3 straight years of 30 home runs. They've got to get him into a position where more guys are on base when he's up at the plate. And then 2, Bradley Zimmer. If Bradley Zimmer can emerge as a legitimate contributor in this lineup, that gives them a left-handed bat in the lineup that they didn't have previously, especially in that outfield. Tyler, what do you think about that? Just the idea that this lineup now with Bradley Zimmer and especially with Francisco Lindor in the 3-hole, it feels like a much more complete lineup.
I think you're absolutely right. And the reemergence of Bradley Zimmer, who was kind of that forgotten former star prospect, has really been a pleasant surprise this summer. He's been tearing the cover off the ball in those exhibition games. I was happy to see him make the team. I don't think he'll be in the starting lineup every day, but I think the ability to have him as that weapon off the bench and in the lineup once in a while will certainly help. It is nice, you mentioned, to have a kind of a true leadoff hitter, quote unquote, in Cesar Hernandez at the top of that lineup, because not that Frankie did a bad job up there, but you're right, you want him up with men on base to maximize those home runs. And Hernandez, we remember too, he's going to be replacing Jason Kipnis, who I know he wasn't the player he once was toward the end of that contract, but a stalwart at second base for a long time. I think Hernandez can fill that position very well. And just the rest of the lineup, I think that this is a very underrated, deep lineup. You look at, obviously, the top 4, Hernandez, Ramirez, Lindor, Santana. Franmil Reyes, I think, has got the ability to have a big year this year. Jordan Lupo, really a pleasant surprise last year. I think his OPS is like over 900. He's earned some more bats. It doesn't have the firepower that the Twins lineup has with Donaldson and Cruz and Kepler, but it can hold its own. And I think if it can mesh, especially come out better out of the gate than they did last year, then I think they have the ability to really make some noise.
Nick, because of the realities of the Indian spending and, losing even a guy like Michael Brantley a year ago and not, replacing him with another Michael Brantley type of all-star player, the reality, I think, for this team is they've just always needed somebody to step up. We know what you're going to get from Francisco Lindor. You hope you know what you're going to get from a guy like Carlos Santana. We'll get to Jose Ramirez here in a minute, but you have the guys you're counting on, but you also need a pleasant surprise or two. And I think this time a year ago, you were hoping it'd be Jake Bauers, and obviously it didn't work out with Jake Bauers, and then they were experimenting with Bobby Bradley. But if Bradley Zimmer can contribute, if Franmil Reyes can take another step forward after hitting 37 home runs last season between his time with the Padres and the Indians.
Chang could be another one.
Yeah, Chang. There was also, who was it? Daniel Johnson. I know he's not starting the season with the Indians, but he's, you can have him on call. But I think, Bradley Zimmer, that's not a guy coming into the season the Indians were counting on. But now if that guy steps up, that completely changes, the trajectory of this lineup.
Yeah, and I think every club over the course of a season is going to need a guy to step up that will be a pleasant surprise for you. Saying that, I do think at the end of the day, in a 60-game shortened season, Ben and Tyler, I think that you need your stars to be your stars. You can't have anybody disappear. It's almost going to be like, a longer type of playoffs. It's going to have an NFL type feel to it where you need guys to really bring it, and you can't afford to have a Lindor have a bad season or a Jose Ramirez have a bad season, or these guys that you're really depending on. They can't afford to have a slow start or a bad year for that matter. But yeah, I think in any sort of season you're going to need breakout type of players, and the guys you've mentioned are all candidates for it. Reyes, you think about Zimmer, all the guys you mentioned, Chang. All those guys are going to need to contribute in some sense. But I do think in this sort of shortened season, you're going to need your stars to be your stars.
And to that point, Jose Ramirez, Tyler, last season, the slow start he got off to, if he gets off to that kind of slow start, again, his season's over.
Yeah.
I mean, that's –
when the Indian season's over, that happens.
Exactly. I mean, he's going to be batting second, and just the realities of the construct of this roster – this team cannot afford Jose Ramirez. I mean, last season at points he was a net negative. He definitely, found his footing in the second half of the season. They need him to really pick up where he left off as far as starting the season off on a strong foot and really returning to an all-star caliber player, if not another MVP contender, just as he was just 2 years ago.
No question. And I think it's good this time that, unlike 2018, when he got off to that great start and then just fell apart from August through the playoffs, and then it carried over into last season where we're talking about, is this another Carlos Baerga situation where he just breaks down rapidly? If you look at his overall numbers, on their own, he actually had a solid year last year, and that just shows you how drastic the turnaround was, how good he was in that second half. Unfortunately, that hand injury kind of doomed them the last few weeks of the season. It shows the confidence they're putting in him, that they feel like he can continue that if they're going to put him at the top of the lineup. I'm confident that he can do it. Hopefully his confidence is back. But obviously that's going to be something people are going to worry about, because we've seen that it's one thing to be streaky, but it's another to go from, okay, you're hitting 160 to,
right,
now you're hitting over 300 and you got the ability to hit 25 homers, drive in 100 runs. So hopefully he can maintain that consistency, but you're right. If he doesn't, this team's in really, really big trouble.
Yeah, and I think, Jose Ramirez definitely a question mark at this point as far as what they're going to get from him, and that the answer to that question is going to determine a lot about this Indian season. What's not a question mark, or at least what we don't think is a question mark, is this team's pitching, especially the starting pitching. We're running a predictions column on WKYC.com. One of the questions I just asked is, who is this team's best pitcher? And consistently, we got different answers. I mean, and it wasn't just two guys. It was 3 or 4 guys who were consistently being mentioned. Shane Bieber's trajectory over the course of these last 2 years, last season he enters as the number 5 pitcher in this rotation. He obviously wins All-Star MVP. He enters this year as the de facto ace, although I think there's some question as to who the true ace is between him and Mike Clevenger. But in a 60-game season, one thing that I think if you're an Indians fan that you should have a lot of optimism about is you're going to have one of the best pitching staffs, one of the best 5-man rotations, especially now that they've moved Lupo down to the bullpen. I think between Mike Clevenger, Shane Bieber, Carlos Carrasco, Aaron Savali and Zach Plesac. I mean, this is going to be really what, if these guys can live up to their billing, it's hard to imagine this team not making at least a wild card run.
Yeah, it's the best rotation in the division, without a doubt. I mean, they top to bottom, they have the best starting pitchers in this division. I think it's why a lot of people are either picking them to win the division, if not finish second and get a wild card. Again, that's why I think, guys, the offense is the big question mark. I think with pitching, you know what you've got. Not that you're taking it for granted, but it's almost like, hey, these guys are going to give them an opportunity to win every time out. So if the offense does what it's supposed to do, this could be a really good team. But you're right, Ben. I mean, all the guys you mentioned, I mean, a guy like Savali was so impressive to me last year. I mean, I think – and he's going to be your number 4 starter. So you've got guys that are your 3, 4, and 5 starter, be a 2 and a 3 on some other staff. So it's far and away why they are one of the better teams in this division.
Tyler, what about you? What about this pitching staff stands out?
Well, obviously the rotation, the way they have been able to develop these young pitchers over the years I don't think there's anyone better in baseball at developing these arms like Francona and these guys are. You just think about that. Shane Bieber at this time 2 years ago, or a little over 2 years ago, was in Double-A. And now here he is, the number 1 starter on a team that has playoff aspirations. There are a few question marks with the rotation in the sense that we need to see if Plesac and Savali can build on the success they had last year, which really kind of came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Carlos Carrasco as well, coming back from what was a hardship that you wouldn't wish on anybody, and we are certainly happy to have him back. But obviously there's going to be questions there when you come back from a health scare such as that. And then Clevenger, just with his ability is not questioned, but just with the injuries, he had the knee injury in spring training. Last year he missed multiple months because he threw his back out, basically. But the ability is there. And then you talk about the depth. I mean, in the minor leagues, Jeffrey Rodriguez.
Yeah, I like Rodriguez.
Last year. Yeah. Logan Allen, the top prospect in the Bauer trade. Even Tristan McKenzie, they think he could be a contributor at some point. This is the most sure thing on this team, is the starting rotation. And I have no doubt that even if a guy goes down, just based on their track record, someone's going to come up and help out and keep this thing afloat.
I do wonder about the bullpen a little bit, just because last year Brad Hand had his ups and downs, especially in the second half of the season. That's one thing that you look at that bullpen, and there's just, Oliver Perez, he's been very steady for them, but he's up there in age. Not a lot of versatility as far as right-handers and left-handers. That's one question. You look at this roster, and that's kind of where the questions are for me, is just they're going to need some guys in there really to step up who maybe they haven't counted on before. But, you look at the starting pitching and how deep they'll be able to take you in most games, and especially in a shortened season. I think that kind of nullifies some of those questions, but they'll definitely have some of those questions to answer. Last thing, and then we'll get out of here as far as we looking at the Indians' trajectory. Nick, I think this setup for the schedule actually works out really well for the Indians. You look at how they beat up on the AL Central, aside from the Twins a year ago. The NL Central, I think there's some encouraging cross-divisional matchups there. I think the Indians kind of drew one of the better straws as far as the way that just this 60-game setup and the scheduling shakes out.
Yeah, anytime you don't have to play the AL East or and right now the AL West, that's good. That's a good thing. I mean, I do think it really shapes out nicely for them, Ben. The only thing I will say with the 60-game schedule is everything is going to be so accelerated. You can't afford to have this slow start. You can't afford to have anything really go wrong for you. I mean, it's like it's going to have, as I said earlier, a playoff feel to it, and everything's just going to be so magnified. So while I think the schedule does work out well for them, I do think I feel like if this was a 162-game season that was coming up, in baseball, we know the cream rises to the top. Most times you're going to have the team that deserves to win the division wins the division. I don't know that that's the case in a 60-game season. I mean, there's been some bad teams that have had, hot starts. I remember, was it the second year with Manny Acta, the Indians were like 30-15. Talk of baseball. I think they finished 25 games out of first place or something. I mean, it's like, Tyler remembers
Just brought back
it.
some painful memories with that. Oh, my Lord.
I mean, think about this. The Nationals last year, what were they, 19-31 after an
they wouldn't have made the playoffs after 60 games.
Yeah. So my only thing is, and I hope that Tribe fans don't take this as a negative thought, but it's just, I just feel like in these sort of situations, kind of like with an ALDS 5-game series, anything can happen. Anything can kind of go wrong, where a stupid team that has no business, being in it, they could start out hot and then they just kind of cruise. And I feel like if you're the Indians, where you're the team that's top to bottom, the best team in your division, maybe, you got a team like the White Sox that isn't going to go away probably now. You got the Twins will be in there. So you got a 3-team race for sure. And then who knows, over the first 20 games, the Royals and the Tigers might do some stupid things that none of us could predict. So that's what makes me a little bit worried about the 60-game sprint here.
Yeah, I mean, I think anybody who tells you they know what is going to happen is lying to you at this point. We have no idea whether it's basketball, football, or especially baseball here starting up. We have no idea what this is going to look like. But we'll see, and we can only do our best that we can to project this. Tyler, real quick, and then we'll get out of here. On that note, we've seen Terry Francona teams get off to slow starts before and wait until June and July, especially, to find their footing. Obviously, given the circumstances of the season, they can't afford to do that.
No, absolutely not. And the good thing is, with this schedule, I mean, you mentioned that the Tigers and the Royals could do some stupid things, but thank goodness for the Tigers and the Royals, because those are two of the worst teams in the league right now. I would hope that the mentality here is going to be different, because they know, all right, we got to hit the ground running right away. We can't just find our footing for the first couple of weeks. No, and every team is going to be in the same boat, so hopefully they're not too behind the 8 ball there. It's going to be tricky. And again, I don't think the NL Central is that great either. You've got 4 teams in that division that could win that division, but none of the teams are particularly fantastic. Again, it's all going to be about keeping their focus. And if they don't do that, this season could be over before it started. But keep in mind, too, MLB apparently is talking about expanding the playoffs to 16 teams again. That came out last night from, I think, John Heyman, that report that there could be an 11th hour deal where they could expand it that much. And if that's the case and the Indians don't make the playoffs under that system, then some people are going to be out of a job after this. But I'm confident they can get it done. I think they have the right people in there to get it done.
Yeah, I think you look at Terry Francona's track record just in unique circumstances and the way he's been an innovator in playoff series before. I think the Indians actually are, even given the slow starts that they've gotten off to, I think they're at an advantage with some of this stuff. So, but like I said, none of us really know what's going to happen, and that's going to be part of the intrigue for this season. So that's going to do it for us. We will have you covered all throughout this week and the weekend and all throughout the Cleveland Indians season, no matter how long it lasts. We're airing the season opener on WKYC on Friday night. We'll have you covered with previews and live blogs throughout the day. But that is going to do it for us. So for Nick Camino, for Tyler Carey, I'm Ben Axelrod. Thanks for watching on WKYC.com.